Hi, Hugh Lopdell here from Oak Park Chartered Accountants with an update for pharmacies. Today I'm going to try and give you some guidance in regards to the $18 million government support for critical community pharmacies. But before I do, I'll give you a quick update on 3 COVID relief measures which I referred to in my last video. I said in my last video the Apprenticeship Boost program may offer help to pharmacies in respect to interns or trainee technicians. That would have meant $1,000 a month paid to pharmacies towards the wage cost of a trainee. I can now confirm that pharmacy technician training cannot be converted to an official apprenticeship. So they're not covered under this Apprenticeship Boost plan, and nor are interns covered, unfortunately. The date for applying for the Small Business Cash Flow Loan Scheme has been extended again and is now available till the 31st of December this year. Now, if you qualified for the original wage subsidy, you probably qualify for this. The extended wage subsidy is available till the 1st of September. It is set at a very high bar though, and very few pharmacies, I believe, will qualify. Your turnover's got to be 40% down on the same 30 days last year. I suspect very, very few, if any, pharmacies will meet that bar. All right, now for the main subject of today. DHBs have circularised all pharmacies with guidelines on who will qualify for a share of the $18 million second tranche of COVID assistance to pharmacies. Now, I have read the circular from DHBs several times and talked with industry representatives, including DHBs. And I have some good news and some bad news for community pharmacists who have been waiting for more information and hoping for a piece of this pie. The ministry has, as I'm sure you know, outlined 2 criteria that a community pharmacy must meet in order to qualify for some of this funding. Now, both criteria must be satisfied. The pharmacy must firstly be critical, and secondly, be experiencing financial difficulty. Okay, well, firstly, the good news. The good news is that you may qualify as critical. Now, how do you know if you're critical? A critical pharmacy is one where if it was to go out of business, the health provision to the local community would suffer because there's no other pharmacy within a reasonable distance, and one guideline I heard was within 5 kilometres. Or you provide some specialist services that other pharmacies around you don't. Now, clearly many rural pharmacies will meet this criteria, as they will likely be the only pharmacy in town. A number of pharmacies provide specialist services, and DHBs will decide if they meet the criteria. The key is that the closure of that pharmacy must be detrimental to the healthcare needs of the community, because that specialist need would no longer be covered. Now, one of the more financially stressed group of pharmacies through COVID has been the inner city pharmacies. Now, sadly, most are going to struggle to qualify as critical by virtue of the fact that if they close their doors, there's another pharmacy not far down the road. Pharmacies in most inner city suburbs, and particularly in Auckland, are in a similar boat. Unless, as I said, that you provide some specialist service or serve a health need that other pharmacies near you don't. So the Ministry of Health indicated there were around 365 pharmacies that qualified under that definition of critical. That does seem on the high side to me, but if you think you have a case under that criteria, good for you. Remember, you need to meet both that criteria and the financial one. And on that note, now for the bad news, I'm afraid. The financial criteria has been set at a very high bar. To qualify under the financial criteria, a pharmacy must, and I quote, show that the viability of your community pharmacy is seriously threatened and you've exhausted other financial support options to remain open, such as other government COVID-19 funding or a bridging loan. The financial difficulty must be directly due to COVID-19, not something else. Now, that is very clear language and describes a pharmacy that is not just financially tight, but is under threat of closure due to COVID. It indicates that you should have qualified for and received Wage Subsidy 1, the Small Business Cash Flow Loan Scheme, and Wage Subsidy 2. But despite receiving that assistance, your pharmacy is still at threat of going under. Now, if at this point there is any pharmacy owner out there, after all I've said, saying, yep, that's me, then you need to satisfy the criteria that this threat to your existence is COVID and not something else. If your books prior to COVID-19 were unhealthy, then that might be hard to prove. My view is if you didn't qualify for the extended wage subsidy, requiring turnover to be at least 40% down on last year, you won't meet the bar of being in immediate financial difficulty due to COVID. At Oak Park, we have many community pharmacy clients throughout the country, rural, city, urgent, suburban, and the worst affected of those is not close to being under threat of closure. So that's the bad news, I'm afraid. As the guidelines are written, your pharmacy may qualify as critical, but you're very unlikely to satisfy the financial criteria. For whatever reason, the ministry must believe that there is a significant number of community pharmacies who are in dire financial stress and seriously at risk of failure due to COVID. That certainly isn't my observation. COVID has been a challenging time for pharmacies, and most recently because of the stresses posed by monthly dispensing. What our pharmacy clients tell us is that their pressing need is for help with additional costs of this dispensing, especially wages, or at least some cash flow assistance while the delayed case mix service fee catches up and kicks in. Also, the pharmacies with the biggest dent in the finances from COVID are, as I've said in my previous videos, that's the city, the urgent and the mall pharmacies. But their need hasn't been targeted by the Ministry of Health with this assistance. So you can give it a go. DHBs say they may fund your accountant's costs of preparing the applications, but that's only if your claim is accepted. So I'm sorry to deliver that news. It's very hard to see that more than a few pharmacies will qualify for this help as it is written. It's a big letdown, I'm sure, for community pharmacies who have been going flat out since lockdown, working long hours, paying higher wages costs, and who were hoping that they might be one of the 365 critical pharmacies to receive assistance. How this has happened, it's beyond my pay grade to know. But I think someone has got something quite wrong. However, it is election year, and politicians can be surprisingly receptive in election years. If the ministry was to learn that little of its $18 million budget promise to community pharmacies was going to find a home, that would be very embarrassing. And they might revisit the criteria. We can hope. Look, if you want to ask me anything about this, my email is coming up shortly. I'm happy to help. I plan to give an outline of how monthly dispensing is affecting pharmacies financially, because that's quite interesting. But I'll try and cover that in my next video, so keep an eye open for that. All right, that's all for this time. I hope you found that helpful. Hugh Lopdell from Oak Park Chartered Accountants.